What's up, Beastdome Nation? I thank you for joining me here today on the Preseason Beast 2020. Very grateful for it, and I'm very confident that once you start to hear my information, this is a place where you belong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the NFC West. You can get all of the rest of my teams for free. Just send me an email, and you'll be ready to beast your league. No questions asked. Year after year, that's all we do. I really dedicate myself to making sure that happens. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the NFC West with the Arizona Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury bringing back Kyler Murray, of course. What's different, there's no more David Johnson, but in comes DeAndre Hopkins. Now let's first talk about just the Cardinals offense as a whole. Their offensive line, they had injuries last year. They're healthy now. They got good guys. They got Pugh. They got Humphreys. They got Sweezy. Like, these are guys that have been formidable offensive linemen. So their offensive line, as long as they stay healthy, Kyler Murray's going to have time. That's no problem at all. His weapons this year are dangerous. DeAndre Hopkins, one-on-one, no one can stop him. Like, you got to double team him. So if you double team DeAndre Hopkins, that's going to leave Larry Fitzgerald in the slot pretty much wide open. I mean, of course, they're going to have someone guarding him, but Fitzgerald one-on-one, that's a tough matchup. You just throw the ball in his body and he'll catch it. And then you got Christian Kirk on the outside running those deep routes. There's a lot to be excited about. Don't forget their new tight end, Dan Arnold from the Saints. Last year, Jared Cook was the Beastdome preseason beast. I got this from a client last year. We'll see if it shows up. It is a Jared Cook autographed jersey. Client sent that to me. He's been a Beastdome tight end the last 2 years. Very sick gift. Dan Arnold, I actually liked Arnold a lot, but of course, you know, he's not going to see any playing time with Mr. Jared Cook ahead of him. So the passing offense is going to work for Arizona. The running offense, that's going to work as well. I've been writing about Kenyon Drake being a superstar for so many years, even when Brock Osweiler was the quarterback for the Dolphins. And now he's on the Cardinals offense that's going to be scoring points. And what I really like about the Cardinals offense is that they run a ton of plays. No huddle, no huddle, no huddle. I don't believe any team ran more plays than they did. And the great thing about Drake is that Drake can literally bust out any run for a long run at any moment and make his entire fantasy day. So the Cardinals are going to be running a lot of plays. Drake's going to be getting the ball a lot. DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to have a lot of receptions this year. I mean, 110 easy, 120 probably pretty easy, because what makes Kyler Murray great is that he's great at throwing those quick 5-yard out patterns, those 3-yard, 4-yard, 5-yard. And yes, that resulted in some horrible fantasy games last year. I believe it was 5 games or 4 games with not one touchdown pass. So DeAndre Hopkins is going to help improve that offense. Now let's talk about the defense.
I am great. Championships, awards, testimonials. Year after year, Beastdome delivers beast draft strategies on a level of its own. Are you sick of losing in fantasy football leagues? Sick of experts who pretend they know what they are talking about when they don't take the time to watch every snap of every game, every season for the past 10 years? All they do is read you box scores and stats with nothing but an empty sheep brain. No expert has more awards, more championships, more testimonials, have made their clients more money in the fantasy sports industry outside of Beastdome. For the first time ever, the draft guide is 100% free. Team by team breakdown, rankings, analysis for every position, a beast draft championship strategy for all leagues, and so much more you would never get from another fantasy website. Don't be a sheep, be a beast. Go to beastdome.com.
And the defense, it's led by Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator, and honestly, he's just not a leader. He's not a winner, but he's got a great group, so that's going to help him a lot. They got an amazing linebacker trio, and that's my favorite part about this team. They got Jordan Hicks, all right, who's part of the Eagles during their great days. Devondre Campbell, who's honestly one of the best cover linebackers in the NFL. And then they got their first round pick, Isaiah Simmons. All three of those guys right away lock everything up, and in the middle of the field and the outside of the field. And then they have maybe the best pass rush in the NFL. They got Chandler Jones and Devon Kennard. Chandler Jones, second place in sacks in the NFL last year. Kennard's an easy 10-plus sack guy. So they got good pressure. Jordan Phillips up the middle is a great defensive tackle. It's a great run stopper right there. And then their secondary, they have talent. They have Patrick Peterson, who's going to lock up one side of the field. And then they have Budda Baker, who's honestly one of the best young safeties in the game today. But outside of those two, there's a lot of holes on that team in the secondary. Jalen Thompson, unproven. Byron Murphy, Kevin Peterson. These guys are all number 3, number 4, maybe not even make the roster on most teams. And the Cardinals are going to depend on those guys. So if I'm an opposing quarterback going against the Cardinals, you got to know that it's going to be a quick pass rush, and you got to find the one-on-ones where Budda Baker's not there and avoid Patrick Peterson. I mean, that's given. But avoid Budda Baker, avoid Patrick Peterson, get those one-on-ones, and if it's a quick slant, throw that quick slant. Just get the ball out and avoid those two guys. Besides the Cardinals, it's too early to say if Kenyon Drake and DeAndre Hopkins or either of them are going to be part of the final draft guide because they both go very early. And if you invest in those guys, that's your franchise. While Arizona Cardinals are looking better than they looked last year, that's for sure. They're still, if they make the playoffs, that's going to be a huge season for them. There is potential for them to make the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, let's talk about another NFC West team that made it to the Super Bowl last year, all right? Let's talk about the 49ers. So the biggest move the 49ers made in the offseason, well, it's going to actually be two moves. One, they got rid of Matt Breida. And a lot of people right away are thinking, oh, Mostert, big season. Tevin Coleman, big season. But let's not get so quick on either of those guys because Jerick McKinnon is finally healthy. And while I agree, Jerick McKinnon is nothing. I mean, you can see my great bus calls from 2 years ago in an article, Burning Money 101, featuring McKinnon and Sam Bradford, who's now a complete waste of money from the Cardinals. Anyways, they paid McKinnon a ton of money. He's going to be involved in some aspect, and it's going to be a hot hand approach. Yes, Mostert is a monster, but Tevin Coleman is a strong running back. So with that being said, I'm going to avoid all those running backs in San Francisco this year. Jimmy Garoppolo, they lost Emmanuel Sanders, all right? And then they lost Deebo Samuel. So now they're really looking at a group of wide receivers that really don't have that much potential. Potential is the wrong word because they all have potential, but they don't have much proven. Ayuk, I like to call him Hadouken because he kind of reminds me of the Street Fighter thing. Even with how explosive he is, he's got a lot of upside in his game. He looks good. Dante Pettis, don't forget him. I mean, he was one of the biggest busts of the NFL last season, and I was the only guy who was touting, do not draft him at all. Don't even think about him in round 9. But now he's going to have an opportunity here because there's really no one else. Well, there's a lot of other guys. Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Hurd. All these guys are going to be a rotating set of wide receivers for Garoppolo to throw to. And don't forget, they're all behind George Kittle as far as Garoppolo's radar. So too much inconsistency there. None of these wide receivers are going to make the draft strategy because let's not forget, the 49ers are a team that love to run the football. They love to run the football. That's all they did in the playoffs. That's what they did a lot during the regular season. And now they got a really strong offensive line. They added Trent Williams from the Redskins. I mean, he's maybe the best tackle in the NFL. All right, so now let's talk about the 49ers defense. Bosa, D Ford, Armstead, Solomon Thomas, all those guys are monsters. Fred Warner did a great job of replacing Patrick Willis, and people are like, Patrick Willis, who? Not exactly, because Willis is one of the greatest to do it. But Warner is a beast, and then they got a burnable secondary, and that burnable secondary was on display in the Super Bowl, and I believe it's going to be on display more so again this season, because you're not going to be able to do much against that front line. That front line really wins the entire line of scrimmage to even running backs have trouble getting past that first line. And then Fred Warner's there to clean everything up. And then they got Tart as a safety, who's a really hard hitter. So outside of those guys, their secondary is completely beatable. Richard Sherman cannot guard number ones. I know he only guards one side of the field, but he can hardly stick with those guys too. He got burned major in the playoffs last year. Witherspoon, Kwan Williams, Jason Verrett, Tarvaris Moore, these are guys that are barely making other squads. So to attack the 49ers, you just need to throw the ball. Just throw the ball. Go in shotgun for sure, because the pass rush comes heavy. Go in shotgun, throw the ball, hit those one-on-ones. You're going to find a lot of good matchups against the 49ers. And are the 49ers a better team than the Arizona Cardinals? Yeah, they are. They are. So 49ers made the Super Bowl last year and lost. Let's talk about the other NFC West team that lost the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and the LA Rams. So Jared Goff's QB once again, but here's what's different about the Rams. Todd Gurley is gone. All right, that's like literally the focal point of their offense. You can make a case that Goff got better as he was the Beast Dome QB of 2018 when he had his career year and led the Rams to a Super Bowl, but he is no longer that and a bag of potato chips. The Rams offensive line is garbage. That's their biggest downfall. So they lost Todd Gurley. You would think that they'd replace him with someone suitable to kind of hold that name. They didn't. They drafted Cam Akers. He looks all right. He looks like a raw, very raw. Clinton Portis is too nice of a phrase to give him. He's not even going to be the guy. It's going to be a running back by committee. They got Darrell Henderson. I like to call him No Gain Henderson. And then they got the real superstar of the group, Malcolm Brown. Yes, I believe Malcolm Brown is going to be the lead running back of this team. He knows the offense. He knows the system. He's thrived in the system. He's done great for Gurley in the past as a backup. He's healthy. He's a veteran. When Rams are trying to win early in the year, Malcolm Brown's going to be that guy. Maybe once they fall out of playoff contention, then it can be a running back by committee. But until then, I do like Brown to win that spot. Maybe he goes at the end of your draft. It's actually very possible that ends up happening for all you Beast Dome MVPs. All right, let's talk about the receiver core. So they lost Brandon Cooks. Big deal. Because yes, his numbers were not that spectacular, but he does so much more than just have his stats. He actually pulls the safety 20 yards back. When I had Tom Brady ranked as my MVP for the 2017 season, and he was the Beast Dome quarterback, the reason why is because they got Brandon Cooks. And Brandon Cooks makes secondaries play back. So all those open throws to Kupp and Woods, that's not going to be there as much as it was in the past. So Kupp and Woods, though, with that being said, they're still going to get a ton of targets, and this running game is not going to do anything with that offensive line. So they're going to throw a lot. I don't believe Kupp and Woods are going to be part of the draft strategy because they're going to go with a very high pick, and that's just not worth it. You don't want to burn your franchise on Rams players this year. They're just not going to be good. And for anyone that's got Tyler Higbee hype, don't forget, Gerald Everett is a better tight end. And last year, if it wasn't for Everett getting injured, Higbee would have never had the spotlight that he had. Everett's healthy. Look for the Rams to run a lot of two tight end sets, similar to the Patriots did with Gronk and Hernandez. A similar type of offense. If they want to go with Reynolds as their number 3 receiver, he's really not that good. 3 catches, 42 yards is like a solid week for him. All right, let's talk about the Rams. Defense is an important part of the Rams. Like, without this, they're nothing. And honestly, the Rams defense has gutted themselves dry. Their new defensive coordinator, Brandon Stanley, he made his living on the coattails of coaching Khalil Mack as a linebacker and Von Miller as a linebacker when both guys were already established. And now he's the defensive coordinator for the Rams. And what he did is he brought in Leonard Floyd, who was his guy in Chicago, So that was a good move. They do have Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald's Aaron Donald. Then they got Ashawn Robinson from the line. So with those 3 guys right there, they're going to make some noise. But the rest of this team, Kenny Young is more of like a safety playing linebacker. He's too small, but he's got good speed. Kaiser's done nothing in his career. And then the secondary is very beatable. Yes, they have Jalen Ramsey who can shut down one receiver. No problem there. But the rest of that secondary is the reason why they're part of one of the bottom-ranked secondaries. And they got rid of Peters, they got rid of Talib. Now they have Troy Hill as the number 2 corner. You know who Troy Hill is? Remember that play against the Saints where it should have been a blatant pass interference? Yeah, that Troy Hill. Outside of that, Nick Scott, Taylor Rapp, both those safeties, they're so beatable. Like, if I'm playing against the Rams, I'm just double teaming Leonard Floyd, double teaming Aaron Donald, and just throwing on that secondary. And then I can even run the ball, honestly, because that linebacking core cannot make a lot of tackles. The Rams have set themselves up for a losing season. That's just the way the cookie crumbled. All right, so next is the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks are a team that can change very drastically if they pick up Antonio Brown, but we'll talk about the Seahawks without Antonio Brown, because who knows with that guy. I mean, if he goes to the Seahawks, don't get me wrong, everybody shoots up the roof. Russell Wilson could maybe have an MVP season if him and Antonio Brown teamed up. Can you imagine Russell Wilson buying time with his legs in the pocket while Antonio Brown buys times with his legs against all the other receivers and our defensive backs in the NFL? Watch out. All right, so without him, the receiving core is semi-weak. They got DK Metcalf, who in my eyes is a number 2 receiver on the outside. You can argue that Tyler Lockett's the number 1 in the slot, but Tyler Lockett's better if they have someone, a superstar on the outside, like Randy Moss, taking care of the business, or Antonio Brown. So you have Antonio Brown, hopefully on one side, but they don't. Instead of just Lockett and Metcalf, it's a rotation between Philip Dorsett, who's been a semi-bust in his NFL career. We can say bust, he was a first-round pick. And then you got David Moore, who's comfortable in the system. All those guys are really going to eat each other. They grabbed Greg Olsen from the Panthers, maybe a Hall of Fame tight end, maybe. But Olsen's at the end of his career, and after what we saw happen to Jimmy Graham in Seattle, forget any tight end in that offense. You're not going to, a bottom tight end 2, a tight end 2 at best, but not someone you're going to want to start week in and week out. Offensive line, they got talent. Dwayne Brown, Upati, that's enough. That's enough to keep them going. But the running game this year is being hindered. Chris Carson, he's going to come back, but he's not 100%. He had a really bad foot injury. Rashad Penny, he's not healthy. He might not even come back till like middle of the season. Then they got Procise, who really knows the system, but he's too small. And then they got DJ Dallas, a rookie, and Travis Homer. Basically, those two are the same players, just speed guys. But honestly, both those guys, the running game, it's just, they really needed Chris Carson. He was their anchor last year, but if he's not the same guy after injury, it's going to be a really bad season for the Seahawks offense. But Russell Wilson will have his moments. He always does. He has some great games mixed in with a lot of bad games, and then he ends up as a top 10 QB. But this year, not looking to draft Wilson unless Antonio Brown goes there. Now let's talk about that defense, all right? Bruce Irvin comes back, and that's a big move because Bruce Irvin was great back in the Legions of Boom day. He went to the Raiders for a while, Panthers, now he's back with Seattle. They need Clowney because outside him, their pass rush is really just nothing at all to write home about. Their defensive tackles, they got a little bit of talent, but let's be honest, teams can run past those defensive tackles. But then they are met by the meat and potatoes of this defense, their linebacker core. Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Michael Kendricks. Bobby Wagner is maybe the best middle linebacker in the game. KJ Wright, he's an upgraded Devondre Campbell if we want to do comparisons. And then Kendricks, he was a great Eagle as well. I like all those linebackers. It's going to be tough to do anything. But then this is where you beat you tried to beat the Seahawks in the past, but last year they proved to be a lot better than people gave him credit for. They got Quandre Diggs at free safety from the Lions. That was a big game changer move because now McDougal doesn't have to do as much and he's actually pretty good. Shaquille Griffin, he can guard number one receivers as long as he has help, and he'll have that help now with Diggs there. Then they got Trey Flowers, who's all right. He's a number 2, number 3 corner. And then they got a bunch of guys that they hope turn into something good. So the Seahawks defense, it's not bad, but it's not good either. You're going to have all day to throw against this team, and that's how you have to expose this secondary, by just having your QB have time to throw and make the good throws. So that's the NFC West breakdown. With preseason beasts, you're going to get the NFC East, the NFC South. You're going to get every single team. Then after that, you're going to get the rankings. You're going to get special videos, a private chat room where you can ask me one-on-one questions, as well as interact with other MVPs in the Beast Dome network. And on top of that, you are going to get the draft strategy. And this draft strategy, it wins championships year after year after year after year after year. I am very grateful for the knowledge that I receive from the power above. Thank you, God. I'm blessed. I'm so blessed with this clear channel of football knowledge, and I bring it to you for free. Email me, beast@beastdome.com. I appreciate you all giving me the time. Beast.